Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday. It is Sunday, January 9th, and this is Ed Carbajal for MMAnews.com, your Sunday submission for the last Sunday after no weekend without a UFC card. I know everybody's crying about that on the MMA Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter at Carbazel. And if you're watching this on the MMAnews.com YouTube channel, make sure you do the thumbs up, bell notification, like, subscribe, and all that to make sure you catch future episodes of these and other content that we have there, especially our fighter interviews and coach interviews done by the Canadian god, James Lynch. So let's get into the news of the week. I know it's hard to, everybody seems to be digging for something. We're coming on fight week of UFC Vegas 46, Qatar versus Chikadze. So there'll be a lot of fresh content coming your way on MMAnews.com this week. But one of the things we have in store is let me bring up the page here. Let's look at the trending news of the past week. Before I bring it up, I mean, because it's no secret that MMAnews.com and I are usually on the same radar because they're very UFC heavy. But there is some news on here. I think it's one of the things out on still on our front page. Let's see if I know it was on there. The this whole well, it kind of correlates. So let me before I go into the stuff that's on here, go by my notes. The Ngannou Fury, Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury. So not this weekend, but the weekend after, which is the 22nd, right? Is that the 22nd? For UFC 270. 22nd, yeah. That's supposed to be, everyone talked about Francis Ngannou and how that might be the last fight on his contract. Now, I don't remember if we talked about it much last week, but I wanted to comment on it now. Let me take this down before I'll bring up that other stuff later. But the stuff that stuck out to me is because now, there's some back and forth with Tyson Fury and, Francis Ngannou. And then I saw that Top Rank was open to like working with Ngannou to make a super fight / exhibition happen. I got some serious Maymac vibes off of that. Mayweather McGregor 2017. If you remember, that was something that was Dana White didn't like the idea. He only likes, which I think we can all, especially folks that follow MMAnews.com, this YouTube channel, and are watching this on Twitter, we'd probably all prefer seeing one of these boxers come to the MMA side. But the money's never really there for them as far as like making it, worthwhile. I know they could probably do like a one fight deal and make it worthwhile, kind of like a CM Punk situation. But I don't think obviously money versus the risk having to learn a new skill set for the boxer to come to MMA is really not gonna, pan out. I mean, I know there's boxers that have done it and done well. You look at Holly Holm, Amanda Serrano, who goes back and forth between both. Clarissa Shields, who just did her MMA experiment with the Professional Fighters League. But as far as like Tyson Fury, I mean, he's in the UFC video game, but as far as him coming the UFC's way, that's highly unlikely. But we've already seen the UFC work with boxing and Espinosa and promoting a pay-per-view for the Mayweather McGregor thing. Coincidentally, Top Rank Boxing and Bob Arum, I mean, if you don't know by now that Dana White and Bob Arum are not fans of each other, then I suggest you just go searching through reactions to all this. But I mean, he's gone on record to say that he wouldn't do anything with them, just to, he's flat out told Bob Arum to go F himself and stuff like that. So I don't see this really happening. However, the UFC is not what it was when Dana White did the Mayweather McGregor thing. It's there's entities behind it now, Endeavor, ESPN, he's the president. Despite what he says, he still has to fold to the people that are above, that own the product now. Um, and I know he says otherwise, but I mean, if he really didn't have a boss, he wouldn't have had to pull that card that was supposed to be at the Tachi Palace back when the pandemic started, if you remember that whole thing. So I think that's proof enough that there is folks that he has to report to and stuff like that. So, so if those same people who do business with Top Rank somehow see they could recreate the magic of 2017 with Mayweather, McGregor, and have Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou, especially if Ngannou wins weekend after this next. I wouldn't be surprised if, say, this summer. Maybe that's probably too soon. Well, it's a weird time, so we'll say because think about if we can get the hell out of this whole pandemic situation, and they want to do something big to have fans and have folks just kind of like celebrate, the way they, coming out of a horrible 2-year situation. Summer 2022, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see Ngannou Fury, but I think it also has to count on if Ngannou has to win on Saturday against Gan, and that MMA is such an unpredictable sport, that you really need to see what happens next as far as that goes. But anyway, in other news, they announced a Holloway versus Volkanovski again, and then unfortunately 2 days later, Max Holloway had to pull out of he got injured like just after the announcement, and it sucks because now we have to you know wait and figure out what's going on with Volkanovski, like who's going to fight him next. I know there's a lot of names that are coming up, so unfortunately, like, I feel like this is me again, just my wheel spinning. It might be work out in the long run because I mean, if you look at all these fights that are being announced for the first quarter. Um, the the thing everyone likes, and I know everyone likes to complain. It's fun to complain that there's no UFC cards, but I think it's gonna get to a point, especially when you look at the logistics of fighters and getting fighters to the Apex, getting to Fight Island, and then the Houston, Florida situation when and if everyone can travel there and travel safely, especially with the whole COVID protocol thing. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But it might be a blessing in disguise because I mean they were going to double up Holloway Volkanovski with Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, and then they pulled that out of this happened. So it might work out well for them because this is like you don't want to. This is another main event situation for a future pay-per-view, and since the I don't know if they're trying to double up on like the main card, especially like maybe doing more title fights, 2 fights a card, or more multiple title fights on pay-per-view because they raised their price. Maybe they're trying to make the justify the increase in pay-per-view price. But either way, it sucks that he had to pull out 2 days after the fact. So, but in the long run, I think that works out for them just because, it's another pay per view they can sell later on. I don't think you have to have multiple fights, but I mean, it could be my East Coast ass because it's a later night for me when I do the editorial here for MMAnews.com. I have to stay up until the press conference is over, and when there's multiple title fights that go the distance, that's a late night for me. Anyway, speaking of which, I mean, talking about the logistics, which is not on the website here, but I want to share it with you because it was a really good get by Nolan King over at MMA Junkie. Their COVID testing. So they got a copy of the protocols that were distributed in a memo to like the competitors, and they're going to be doing 3 tests. And again, this is a shout out to Nolan King over at MMA Junkie. They have to do so for fight week. They have to do 3 tests: a pre-fight, 3 pre-fight COVID tests that like leading into fight week. So the first test is like a home one that they get before they start making their way out. Second one, when they get to the fight week, the Apex or wherever they're having it, they do a throat swab, and then they do a third one on the weigh-ins, the morning of weigh-ins, and which is kind of really cutting it close. But if a positive result happens, they have to follow CDC guidelines, and we saw this all through the pandemic. This is why I always tell. I mean, if you're following the UFC, you should follow the UFC news. That they also have their own separate like handle on Twitter, because when they have to change cards last minute due to COVID protocols and things like that, injuries, it usually pops up there. So that I I see a lot of that happening. More of the same, pretty much. I mean, it's better safe than sorry. They have the three tests and leading up to their fight. Um, I don't know if that. I mean, it looked like it. Let me look at the article here. It looked like it only. I mean, obviously masking and social distancing. That was the other thing too. They talked about social distancing. Um, so like when you look at fight camps, it's warming up and staying ready for something. I mean, you still have to. You can't just rest all week and cut week. You do have to kind of drill your moves and things like that. I wonder how much of effect it's going to have on the fighters, as far as like people that they bring with them to train and prepare for the fight that they have coming up. So, I mean, if someone we've seen in the past already, if someone in that camp that test positive, it's everybody has to quarantine and postpone the whole thing. Um, I don't know if they're going to do like rapid second tests, whatever, because of all the, now we're seeing discrepancies of which test is accurate and blah blah blah. I think maybe if they just go through the motions and they can get to fight night, that's probably what we'll see coming out of there. But I mean, um, you know, it is what it is. It's where we're at now when it comes to the way events are held now. But it's nice to see that there's a protocol in place. Um, and then um, the other thing that's we're going to get ramped up leading it into the week so I wanted folks to kind of YouTube on Wednesday night. If um, they're not on Fight Pass anymore, but if like UFC has farmed a lot of the women from their on their roster from Invicta Fighting Championships. Invicta FC 45 also returns this week on Wednesday. And it's going to be completely free on YouTube. So just check out the Invicta FC YouTube channel. Wednesday night's a weird night to feature an event. So hopefully they started. The card's not that big though, so they could probably pull it off. Excuse me, but it's their first event of 2022. They're doing the open scoring, no fans because they're playing it safe, and it's a rematch between Alicia Zapatella and let me bring up that card because I interviewed a couple of the fighters on there, and it's I'm really excited. Again, they a lot of the female talent from the UFC has come from um, this promotion, and the first fight between Alicia Zapatella and Del Boni, um, you know, people had various opinions of who won that fight, which is why they're doing it again. But I want to bring up the fight card. They did the last update to the fight card was on December 31st. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only 6 fights on the card. So YouTube is a great platform for it. They usually they have a deal with Access TV, but and they've done they did a pay-per-view for UFC Invicta FC 44. The oh wow, Shamir Pesce was on this card. She's a co-main event featherweight. Oh, nice. Glad to see her fighting. I've interviewed her multiple times. That's fantastic news. But Monica Franco versus Haley Cowan. So I interviewed Monica Franco for another outlet. Haley Cowan's was fighting in LFA. This is her Invicta FC debut. A lot of folks saw her kind of like until she suffered the last fight she had in LFA. Cowan lost. So her coming into Invicta, she picks up some W's there. I wouldn't be surprised if they start fast tracking her into the UFC. But Monica Franco is gonna look to spoil that party for sure. And so a 6 fight card. If it starts, it's beginning at 8, but again, it's 6 fight cards versus what we're used to seeing 13 or 14 fights on a card. So it might not make for a bad night for folks that want to stay up and watch some MMA. Um, um, and then LFA returns. Speaking of LFA, they return that Friday. If you have UFC Fight Pass, there's a lot of stuff ramping up coming back this weekend. And then of course you have the Chikadze Qatar card from the Apex. So the thing about that matchup on Saturday, I don't know. It's MMA is getting harder and harder to predict fights for because unless it's like somebody that you've done a lot of research on, um, even still, because if you look back at the way the whole Nunes Pena thing, everyone had Nunes, myself included, had Nunes winning, and Pena scored the upset, and it's funny because when I was talking about it with my jiu-jitsu instructor yesterday, and he was telling the younger guys that we're talking about UFC and the whole pay-per-view thing and the fight game in general, and he just kind of reiterated how any mixed martial arts is really I mean the odds makers, all that stuff can go right out the window because anything can happen. Literally anything can happen in MMA. So anyway, um, and speaking of MMAs and the whole top rank nonsense, I mean, Jake Paul is, of course, we have to mention him because he's being mentioned on our website, so we have to bring up the news. Um, and he loves to tease everybody. I mean, it's one of the things he's good at is um, making folks wonder what his next move is. And he put this video up. I'm not going to play it because YouTube gets weird about things that we play on here. He's training some leg kicks, so right away, there's a rumor that he's gonna poke Dana White's chest and make a foray into MMA to see if he can disrupt some numbers there, because for some reason they keep going back and forth even though they're not even in this. And I kind of get where Dana White is coming from when he talks about do whatever you're gonna do. Like I really do understand where he's coming from. But one of the things that you'll see in this article is that it looked like there was some, didn't you see he tagged the PFL in this, and like Peter Murray and all the Don I forget the guy's name. His first name is Don something. The people decision makers at the Professional Fighters League seem like they're interested in doing some business with them, but Jake Paul's in business with Showtime. So if he was really going to try to do something with MMA, I feel like it would be smarter and more business you know friendly for him to do it with Bellator. I mean, he tagged Bellator in that tweet too, but PFL seemed to be liking it more. But I think they're still on ESPN, or they're going to do their season on ESPN. I know they're doing something with Fubo Sports with the Challenger Series. I don't know if they're going to bring their whole product there, but we have to see where the regular season is going to be. But we've seen them do the experiment with Clarissa Shields. I mean, molding and creating a platform for Kayla Harrison has done really well, to the point that now Kayla Harrison can go wherever she wants because she's proven to be, coming from judo and just adding everything else, getting a fight in Invicta, and trying to fight other places already shows that she's well more than ready to fight anywhere she wants to fight too. Jake Paul's young though. Like, look at how he's absorbing boxing training and doing like serious boxing camps. I think his youth and athleticism, I mean, the sky's the limit for him if he's got the time and the money to actually focus. I mean, you're probably gonna I'll probably get some thumbs downs and some hate on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he puts the same effort into MMA, if he can, put him against an 0-0, or a 1-0, like, give him a fair matchup. He's young. The CM Punk didn't get the same matchup only because my argument in that whole situation was They gave him all the time to train or whatever, but you still matched him up against younger dudes. Like you still match CM Punk against some 19, 20-year-old, brown belt and BJJ or you know what I mean? Like he didn't get a fair or someone that was really good. Like Mike Jackson's got a striking pedigree, the more time in striking than CM Punk ever. You know what I mean? Like it was just not fair. They gave him, similar record fighters, but I mean, I think they would have done him more justice if he went against like a 1-0 or somebody a little older. But I mean that was the whole point of it, wasn't it? To prove who belongs and who doesn't. Um, and CM Punk still took it like a man, so he actually got a lot of my respect through that whole thing. And Jake Paul's getting some of my respect too. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does do it. I wouldn't be surprised if he does well. And keep in mind, is that the Body Shop? I forget the name. It's not Hard Knocks or Body Shop? I always confuse. I think it's Body Shop, where Anthony Taylor and all them, AJ McKee, Anthony Taylor, um, Antonio McKee, all those guys train. Um, Anthony Taylor is his regular sparring partner for boxing, who trains there. So he's definitely got a shoe into a legit training camp to do mixed martial arts. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does do it, if that's becomes where he trains and stuff like that. And everybody that does train with him, when asked, like when you talk to other boxers that have been in the same room and that know the same people that were helping him train for boxing, they don't talk if they don't talk down about Jake Paul. They kind of hype him up. So I wouldn't be surprised, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for it, but listen, I mean he hasn't lost yet. I know the people he's beaten were not from boxing, from MMA with wrestling bases. I mean, yes, there's strategy behind it, but the other side, the competitors that lost, they wanted to test themselves too. And plus, again, I think everybody made out well financially from those situations. Whether you want to give him shit about the draws and all that stuff, um, pay-per-view draws or whatever from that last event and not doing well, but they still made their money, I'm sure. Um, and I think I'm trying to see what other news we have that's trending outside of this top 100 list that nobody asked for. Um, uh, it's been a rough week for for the news. Bellator announced a lot of got a lot of course it's not on here because I have too many walls in front of me when I want to write on MMAnews.com. But um, Bellator has announced a string of events. They come back January 29th. I don't know if I mentioned Neiman Gracie versus Logan Storley for when they get back to the Mohegan Sun, their fight sphere. That's like a jiu-jitsu guy versus a wrestler at a welterweight. I'm really looking forward to that one. Their Dublin card is really stacking up. That's a Musasi Vandeford card. Um, that's definitely one to watch. So it looks like the first quarter of mixed martial arts is really coming into its own. I'm curious to where we wind up because of like, I mean, I hate talking about it and repeating it, but the whole COVID thing, it could fuck up a lot of our plans. I mean, it's already messed up a lot of plans, right? And I'm being honest, that's why I'm dropping my F bomb. But you know, um, I don't know who you'd want to see against as far as the whole, talking about plans being messed up with the whole Holloway Volkanovski thing being undone literally days from when they announced it. I don't know who would you want to see step in there? I have no idea. I can't for featherweight. I mean, there's a lot of polls out there asking who's next. One thing I want to say is that I mean, I think Charles Oliveira kind of threw his name in there or mentioned it. One thing I want to say about Oliveira and his next fight, it better be against Justin Gaethje. I keep seeing him talk about Conor McGregor, um, and all these other fighters except Justin Gaethje, who's like, you know, he's right there. Like, why are you gonna don't worry about jumping in for to any other. I know he wanted to do there was like champ or whatever. Worry about defending your title, man. I mean, you're building your family, and he's a cool guy. I'm trying to talk trash about him, but everything I keep seeing makes me wonder if I mean, are you? When you look at that first round between him and Chandler, like Chandler dropped him, so that means he can get dropped early if somebody catches him hard. Justin Gaethje's one of those guys. I mean, he catches everybody hard from rounds 1 through 3, 4, and 5. If you look at his past fights, win or lose, I mean, he's dangerous literally on the way down. Like if you look at his losses to Alvarez and Poirier, um, Khabib did the smart thing by baiting him into a grapple and choking him unconscious, which was absolutely necessary because Justin Gaethje's a maniac. Um, you know, I think I think if his title is in jeopardy, and we wrote about this because Chael Sonnen, it's on MMAnews.com. Chael Sonnen also believes that the matchup between Connor and Oliveira could benefit Connor for like potential second or getting a title again. But I would prefer to see Justin Gaethje get. I mean, the time in the sport is limited. Like as far as what you're able to accomplish, especially it's definitely a young man, woman's sport. Uh, the time that you have, which is why Kayla Harrison's so adamant about competing and the whole PFL thing. Um, when they postponed their 2020, that's why she went to Invicta because she knows, the one thing you can't get back is time, and especially in combat sports, if you're getting old and your skills are not being put to test and you don't get a chance to chase the glory and the money and all the stuff that's happening, it'll leave you behind. And Justin Gaethje, with the way he fights, I would really hate for him to miss his chance at one more chance at getting gold. He's always right there. I mean, and the war he fought against Michael Chandler, I mean, yes, he wins those fights, but I mean, I think it was Teddy Atlas that said that the guys that fights like that, they always leave a little bit of themselves, and I think I've said that on here before. They always leave a little bit of themselves behind in the cage or the ring when they fight these wars. So I don't know, man. I I hope Oliveira's just not dodge. I'm not trying to, I know he's not that type of guy. I just hope that he's not dodging Gaethje and that the UFC is not going to do Gaethje dirty when it comes to the 155-pound division. But I think that's it. I mean, listen, not a lot of news to talk about, especially when there's near UFC and you're on a platform that's very thirsty when it comes to what everything the UFC does. But if you go to MMAnews.com, you can find all these articles about everything under the sun UFC related. This whole thing about Kamaru Usman telling someone to go choke themselves. I mean, he's just engaging with folks on Twitter that are coming at him. We all know that social media is super toxic. I mean, I get told I suck on a weekly basis. Um, but we'll be back to somewhat normal for the MMA world. With this Chikaze Qatar card on Saturday. I'll be talking about it here. Hopefully, we'll see if Sunday submit again. I'm here this Sunday. I know I mentioned it last weekend. They're looking at trying to do something different with this homegrown content outside of interviews on MMAnews.com, but I haven't heard anything new, so we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Make sure that you, again, if you did like it, give me a thumbs up, bell notification, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to MMAnews.com for all the mixed martial arts, heavy UFC related news and some Bellator thrown in there. And again, I always stream this on Twitter, so you can follow me on Twitter at Carbasil. I got a newsletter and everything up there, so make sure you give me a follow, subscribe to the newsletter and all that stuff. And that's it from me. Stay safe, warm. Don't be a dick to anybody with this whole situation we're going through. And that's it for me. I'm tapping out. I'll see you next week, hopefully.